about to get started. Have a couple things to do today. I might have a surprise install that would be really sick. We're gonna go pick up the expansion tank and the Greddy oil plug and put those on. And then hopefully we have time for something else. Okay guys, alternator is back off. We got the aftermarket sensor. I'm gonna take this one out and throw this one in. My buddy just had this one on standby. I'm gonna take off this nozzle or whatever, this fitting, and unplug it, Teflon it. It's only a 75 PSI, but it should at least have a different reading on the gauge. If the sensor was the problem, it'll say something else. And then I'll know to get a new sensor. I already emailed AEM, and we'll see if they get back to me, but we'll throw this guy in and see what's up. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I just tried threading this guy in, and I believe they're the same thread pitch. Exactly the same. And it felt a little tight. And I know this one felt tight as well, but when I would crank it into the threads, it would, and it wasn't cross-threaded or anything, it would get nice and smooth, and then it would get snug again when it was finished threading. But this one, I tightened and it seemed to just get harder and harder, and I made sure I was not cross-threading it, so I think I'm just gonna put this one back in. I'm gonna clean this hole up a little, and see if anything changes. I doubt it will. Real quick as well, this OEM sensor, I actually put electrical tape around because I guess it's just a ground switch that turns that oil light on your dash when you have loss of oil pressure. And if this just touches your block, that oil light will just come on and it'll be annoying. So if you tape it off, it should negate that problem. Okay guys, alternator's hooked back up, sensor's back in. I cleaned up the hole a little bit. We'll see if that makes a difference when I turn it on. So I took that time while the car was on, checking for leaks, to move it into the garage because it is getting hot out here, and we'll go from there. So I don't know what to do because the gauge still just says sense. So I'm gonna check all my wiring again to make sure I don't have any weird splices, and I actually have some information I didn't tell you guys in the last video that really helped me out with the install that like hardly any videos tell you about. So I'm gonna show you that now. So I didn't hook up the wiring for the gauge under here at the fuse box. I actually wired it into the clock for the dash clock right here in the GDs. So it's actually really simple. I'm gonna pull this cluster out, unplug the gauge, and I'll show you how the wiring works. So here's the plug for the gauge. Let's see here. For the gauge, on the other side, you'll see right here, here's the 4 wires that come out of the gauge. You got a black for ground, a red for power, and the white and brown are used for a positive and negative to your ECU if you're going standalone or if you have any sort of logging device. So you just cap those 2 off. Don't cap them together, but I just have them twisted together just for convenient reasons, but they're all individually capped off. Now the red power is gonna go to the yellow and green on your clock. That's the power for your clock. It's actually a 12-volt ignition power, which is perfect for the gauge. Then the ground is gonna go to the black. Then these 2 are just gonna get capped off. I think that's a blue and red and a pink and blue. These 2 just get individually capped off. Red goes to yellow green, black goes to black. The other 2 from the gauge get capped off. And that's how you get your power and ground to the gauge, very simply, right up here. You just clip these wires and use them. So far the gauge still isn't working, so I'm gonna order a new sensor. They're very cheap on Amazon, 100 PSI sensors, very compatible with AEM, where AEM charges like $70 for one of these. But I am going to Reflected Image today to pick up the coolant expansion tank from Killer Bee and the Greddy oil plug, and if they have one in stock, I might just pick it up and try it on today. And if it doesn't work, I'll just return it. But for now, I'm gonna throw some grease into the bottom of this shifter. See if that makes it feel a little better, because it feels real good, but I noticed I never greased it up when I installed the Cobb short shifter. So I'm gonna grease that up, and then we'll move on from there. So here's the Cobb short throw shifter with the Cartboy, or the torque solution bushings in it. And I'm gonna re-lube this up and lube the little cup in there, right in there. Okay guys, everything is greased up. I cranked these real tight and it feels pretty dang good. There's hardly any play in the shifter. except for in third. I don't know what that is all about. I mean, it's very residual, but feels pretty good actually. I love it. It feels way better than it did a couple days ago. So I'm gonna reassemble all this and we'll move on. Okay guys, just got back from Reflected Image. I got my new Greddy oil drain plug. Got the Killer Bee oil or coolant expansion tank, but it's amazing, but the new ones come with AN fittings, I guess. So I need to run down to the hardware store probably tomorrow to get some new fittings that aren't AN, that are just barbed ends, and or not AN fittings, just any fittings, and to pair with this, make sure they're barbed and not AN lines like this. I don't know why they would ever do that. It's weird. Now for the surprise install that I was contemplating doing, and it's all working out now, I'm actually gonna just do it, is this right here. I picked up the STI CLUSTER. It does have a broken bracket, but I think it'll be fine with just the 2 mounts. I've already depinned and repinned these 2 connectors to be compatible with it, and this one I shaved down the harness to be compatible with it as well. So let's throw this in. What do you know? Oil pressure gauge is working. To be honest with you guys, when I was at Reflected Image, I picked up a brand new 100 PSI bung, and that was the issue, because I threw it on and immediately I'm getting readings, correct readings on the gauge. So luckily I figured it out. I already told you the Killer Bee expansion tank came with AN lines for some reason. I mean, maybe I could break these ones off and reuse these or something, but it's kind of a pain in the butt, but we'll get it figured out. Pretty excited to move on though. I know I'm gonna try to put this guy in right here, this Greddy Trust oil drain plug. I'm gonna try to just swap it real quick before too much oil comes out, so wish me luck. Whew, okay, so I just swapped the drain plugs. It was the most intense thing I've ever done in my life. I cranked the Mishimoto one loose, got it where it's jumping threads, you know, right at the end, had the other one ready, and I just swapped hands, threw the freaking Greddy one right in. And I didn't lose too much oil. I'll show you. Not all the oil I lost. It's hardly any. I could fill that up right now. But this oil is pretty dark for like 1,500 miles on the oil change. So I don't know. I'm sure everything's fine. This last oil change I did, I had a lot of metal on it. But talking to all my Subi friends that live here in Utah, they all experience the same thing. So, but I'll get under and show you that Greddy Trust drain plug. There it is. It's actually pretty pimp. And I'll keep an eye on it, make sure it's pretty solid. Hopefully it fixes the problem I had. I could recycle these fittings, but this one is actually a welded on fitting, and this one up down here, I believe when I installed it, I remember it being welded on, and so is that one right there. So I'm gonna have to run to the hardware store tomorrow, probably early in the morning, grab the fittings for the Killer Bee, and then I could probably proceed with this. And after that, I still have a massive coolant leak on the back of the block I need to worry about, which I don't even know where it's coming from. Well guys, I am out of time to work on the car today. We got a lot of stuff done. I'm pretty stoked. We got the gauge working. We got the new cluster in the dash for the STI. We oiled up the short throw shifter. We switched out that drain plug for the oil, which I've yet to find out if it's still leaking, because if it's still leaking, it's got to be some sort of issue. I cranked it. There was a drop, and I cleaned it up real nice too, and there was a drop on the ground. So I started the car, gave it some revs, and you know, left it where it's gonna sit for now with a paper towel underneath the drain plug with some bolts holding it down so the wind doesn't blow it away. But my brother suggested cranking it loose, just enough to get a rag underneath that washer and wipe everything, because there might be like some granulated like dust or rocks or something, anything like that, stopping it from seating all the way. So I did that and then re-cranked it real good to crush that washer. And I guess we'll see when I get home if it's leaking. I'll keep you guys updated. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.